Wow!
Hello everyone, I'm Jord, and today I'm joined by...
Hello, it's me, I'm Jervis.
And today we're taking a look at Grimer and Muk, my redesigns of them. So let's go ahead and start with the Tohokan Grimer water redesign. What do you think about this guy?
First off, I'm just going to say I love the pickles on his tongue. I'm not sure if that was the intention, but I feel like this is a reference to that SpongeBob episode.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like this little guy.
Muk is kind of boring as a design. I mean, that's kind of its appeal. I've gone over it, but for something like this, yeah, adding these little touches really help to just make it more interesting.
First off, I think one of the most notable things about this one and its evolution is that mono water Pokemon usually don't get Sap Sipper anymore. In the past, Azumarill did have Sap Sipper up until Gen 6, where it became a water fairy type, and thus was no longer able to just nullify one of its weaknesses with that ability. So now it's pretty rare to find a Pokemon that's water type and has it. So that alone gives these guys a niche, which is pretty interesting.
Although the defensive spread on it isn't really amazing, right? Even for Little Cup, it's not that good.
It's kind of middling as far as Little Cup goes. Obviously, having only one weakness is pretty good, especially in Little Cup, where electric types aren't the most threatening thing in the world, at least in my experience is any indication.
Yeah, I guess the age of, what was it? Water, ice, electric are pretty much over.
Bolt beam coverage is still really good, it's just that electric types in particular haven't been that common in Little Cup in the times I've played it.
So,
but yeah, as far as...
What would you say this guy wants to go up against, since we're talking about Little Cup?
I'd say he could work decently as a wall breaker. That's what a Alolan Grimer does typically in Little Cup. He could do decently in that. He has favorable matchups against any of the grass types in Little Cup, which obviously there are quite a few of. His speed tier is a little low, and I don't believe Trick Room is that meta relevant in Little Cup. But I could see him putting in some work there, especially if he had access to something like Flip Turn, which is pretty good.
Which moves are most relevant for it? I mean, I don't know if Waterfall and Aqua Jet are that relevant anymore.
Oh, Aqua Jet is still very relevant, because priority moves are always pretty good. Waterfall is obviously pretty good. Wave, I don't think it would probably get access to Wave Crash, even though its evolution probably would. Just because, you know, very, very... one of those big boy moves that has a lot of recoil.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And of course, Flip Turn is something a lot of water types get access to now. If you're not aware, because Flip Turn is probably going to be pretty relevant in this video, I should probably explain. It's one of the three more relevant, not phasing, retreat moves, I guess you could call them.
Like U-turn.
Along with yeah, it's up there with U-turn and Volt Switch.
Okay, I get the idea. So it's the same but water type. So
effectively, yeah.
Very powerful and a lot of utility.
Notably, U-turn is one of the most popular moves in the meta just for the utility of being able to retreat out of battle. Volt Switch is less good, if only because if someone switches in a ground type, then the move just whiffs, and you don't get to retreat either. Water is not nulled by any type, which makes it much better than Volt Switch, but not quite as good as U-turn because there are some abilities which nullify water moves, obviously.
Yeah, like Sap Sipper, obviously. No, not Sap Sipper. God, what was it?
Storm Drain.
Yeah, that one.
Storm Drain, Water Absorb, etc. So, Flip Turn is sort of in the middle of the three retreat moves. But having Stab, Flip Turn is always very good for any Pokemon. Everyone appreciates it, especially because Water is generally considered the best type in competitive.
And what do you think this guy gets countered by?
Any Pika Clone.
Okay.
Yeah, any sort of fast electric type special attacker. kind of munches him in Little Cup.
Yeah, that makes sense. Alright, so what's your final verdict for this guy?
I'll probably give him about a C+. He seems like a pretty fun guy to be around, but I'm not sure how many waves he would make in Little Cup, so to speak.
Alright, which one are we looking at next?
I can briefly touch on Grimer, just because...
Which one? Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
Right, fair. Fair. Like, that's a fair point. It's like, are there any other Grimers I should know about? Meow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're looking at what? The Milk Grimer?
I can briefly touch on the green one, the thief one, just
alright.
because Sticky Hold is... Sticky Hold is a bit interesting as ability. Its defensive stat spread isn't the most amazing for Little Cup, but I can see him having a similar role to normal Grimer. But he would probably be outperformed by the other two Grimers here and by a Alolan Grimer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Moving on to Wey, though, he is actually pretty interesting. Just because in Little Cup, Natural Cure can be a little bit hard to come by. There aren't a ton of like decently bulky Pokemon that get it in that level range. Obviously, it's competing with Swablu, Blissey, and I believe Phantump, none of which are particularly bulky.
I think you got your terms mixed up. Wey, I don't think would qualify for Little Cup.
Or not Wey, Grimer, excuse me.
Alright.
My brain was going with what was it? My brain was jumping to ahead to its evolution. But yes, Skim Milk Grimer, I mean, could put in some work in Little Cup, I think.
Yeah, I mean, normal is okay as a defensive stat, I think.
Yeah, it nulls Ghost, which is one of the best offensive types in the game, and it's only weak to fighting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, so decent defensive stats, Natural Cure, presumably access to something like Bulk Up, potentially.
I'm not sure. Maybe. It's hard to say.
That might be something only its evolution gets.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, based on past games, I would say it could probably get it as like a TM or an egg move, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, very dependent on the move's availability in that given generation.
Yeah.
Since Bulk Up is one of those moves that tends to yo-yo in terms of who gets it.
Yeah, in terms of ability, I kind of envisioned it having access to a Natural Cure, the Generator, I think it was called.
Yeah. One thing I will say is Regenerator has very limited availability. If it got Regenerator, then it would immediately hop up in terms of viability just because of how good that move is, or that ability is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of envisioned this guy as like not the ultimate support piece, but basically like, what if Muk was, you know, mashed up with Miltank and Chansey?
Oh yeah, I could see it getting Milk Drink then. That would be also pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's actually that's more appropriate than Recover now that I think about it, and I completely forgot it exists.
Yeah, most people do.
Its stat line, I mean, it's not massively higher, but it does. I mean, the defenses do seem at least more useful.
Yeah, with an Eviolite, I could see this guy putting in work on in Little Cup pretty easily.
Yeah, and unlike another unlike another contender, Grimer doesn't have to deal with double weakness to almost every relevant type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so what do you think this guy would be useful against?
Well, he definitely hard checks anything that relies on ghost type moves. So sending him out against the ghost types in Little Cup, he could do pretty good. And fighting types, most of the Little Cup fighting types aren't amazing. There's some stuff like Riolu that would give him a hard time, but not a ton of things that jump out to me. Because of how many things gain fighting as a secondary type later on. So I could see him being just a decent pivot or wall, especially if it got Regenerator.
Yeah. Alright, so what's your final verdict for this guy?
I'm tempted to give him a D out of 10, just because, sideways D, but probably also a C+.
Alright. So, if we're already talking about Wey, let's take a look at him.
Okay, Wey. Normal fighting has been interesting, because it is actually a very good offensive stab combination, just because everything that normal doesn't hit, or everything that resists normal fighting hits for super effective damage, and everything that resists fighting normal hits for neutral damage. So it's very good, with the glaring exception, the phantasmal elephant in the corner that is the ghost type.
Yeah, and I don't really see this guy getting scrappy.
Yeah, doesn't make a ton of sense. But with the exception of ghost types, he can hit things pretty hard, I can see.
Is 105 attack that high? Doesn't seem that way.
It's not the highest in the world. Without access to, again, something like bulk up to boost your stats. Notably, I will say the 25 base speed, which I know several of these Pokemon have, which gives me a good opportunity to talk about the weird U-bend of speed viability in current modern-day Pokemon, where the viability of Trick Room that has been brought on mostly by a bunch of new good Trick Room users like Ursaluna, as well as good Trick Room setters like Farigiraf, means that the actual worst speed you can have is somewhere in the 80s or 90s. The more your speed goes up above that, the more important it is, and the lower your speed is below, I'd say probably around the 50s, the better you become in Trick Room.
Makes sense.
And 25 is a very, very good speed to have under Trick Room. This guy also most likely has access to a stab Drain Punch.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Drain Punch is very common on most Muk sets. Like, Alolan Muk is in UU almost entirely because of his access to Drain Punch and defense boosting. So something like, I could see Drain Punch, Bulk Up, maybe Milk Drink or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
I
Slap on Regenerator and this guy basically never dies.
Pretty much. I could see him. He fits in very nice as like a defensive counterpart to Chansey and Blissey, who, their viability has gone down as of this generation, mostly because of, three factors really that have been happening over the last couple generations. A, Chansey and Blissey both lost access to Toxic, which was one of their most important tools. B, their healing moves have generally become a bit less reliable because
wait.
gone down.
Roll that by me one more time. They retroactively lost access to Toxic?
As of this, I believe this generation, they can't use Toxic anymore.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it makes sense, but it's still kind of strange.
Yeah, Toxic had its availability decreased heavily these last couple generations, and Chansey and Blissey just can't use it anymore.
Yeah, and Seismic Toss isn't really cutting it anymore.
Pretty much. There are a lot of things with a lot of HP now. But yeah, the decrease in viability for those two is mostly due to the loss of Toxic, the loss of PP to recovery moves, where they dropped from, I believe, 15 to 8 now at max.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty big difference, yeah.
And most notably, there's just a lot of competition from Unaware Pokemon, because Unaware had its availability as an ability increased very heavily. Specifically, Clodsire is the main thing that just kicked Chansey and Blissey out of OU, just because it's a Pokemon that's immune to the opponent's stat-raising moves. So you can just be facing down like a +6 Zacian and just not care. And obviously Clodsire gets access to Spikes, Stealth Rock, Toxic, and, well, just everything a stall Pokemon could want. So, that tangent aside, I could see him working as a physical equivalent to, say, Chansey and Blissey. I could see him being pretty solid as a physical wall, depending on what his moveset is, especially if, again, he got Drain Punch, Bulk Up, anything like that.
Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee he would, based on past games.
Yeah. So I'd say he's probably a good UU contender.
Alright, so what does he want to play against?
Well, Fighting type does give him favorable matchups against certain annoying Pokemon, specifically a lot of Steel types that aren't named Golden Go. He can go up against pretty well. I could actually see him having a favorable matchup against even something like, say, a Ferrothorn, even though he most likely wouldn't get Fire Punch, or even if he did or didn't. His physical attack is high enough that neutral fighting type moves might be able to take it down before Ferrothorn can just outlast him. And Ferrothorn is probably going to be pretty relevant coming up. I believe he comes back in the next DLC if he's not back already. He actually goes up pretty well against Clodsire, again, ironically, since Natural Cure can get rid of Toxic, and he can hit Clodsire on its weaker defensive stat. So that works out pretty well.
And
of course for counters...
Yeah, exactly.
What? And of course for counters, Bear meta.
Oh.
The four bears of healthy meta, i.e. the 2 Ursalunas and the 2 Urshifus, kinda all of them kinda wreck this poor guy. Just because, you know, the Urshifus both get access to stab close combat, which kind of unfortunately folds this guy in half. I believe Ursaluna also gets... I know Blood Moon Ursaluna gets access to Vacuum Wave now, which is pretty useful.
Yeah.
And normal Ursaluna...
Bad news for this guy.
Normal Ursaluna has... Ursaluna...
Outside Trick Room, it wouldn't be that relevant, but then I don't know, would people run this guy exclusively in Trick Room?
That's kind of hard to say, because again, that speed is very good. He underspeeds Ursaluna in Trick Room, which is pretty nice. Which, that alone is enough to give him some viability. I can actually see him being run as more of a setup mon, in all honesty. Just using a mixture of Bulk Up and Drain Punch to stay alive. Because Trick Room is obviously very antithetical to setup, just because it only lasts 5 turns.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my general thoughts on Wey.
Alright, so what's your final...
I'm probably just gonna give this one this guy a C. He's very cool, very charming, but
very special design, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. And finally, are we looking at luck or at wave?
I would actually like to look at Wey Muk, just because I actually do have some interesting insights on this dude.
Alright.
Okay, notably, Trick Room water types aren't as widespread as you would think. His main competition is Dondozo, of course, who is 35 speed and gets access to Unaware. So he would probably end up setting in about UU in terms of viability, just because he does Dondozo's shtick, but not quite as good as Dondozo does it, I guess you could say. But besides that, as I said before, water, one of the best types in the game, competitively. He speed ties Ursaluna and underspeeds Blood Moon Ursaluna, I believe.
Yeah, I think Blood Moon has 52 speed. For some reason.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was done entirely just so it gets undersped by normal Ursaluna. But yeah, the Ursaluna matchup is somewhat notable, only because Ursaluna, without terrestrializing, is weak to water. and a Wave Crash from this guy would really hurt.
Yeah, makes sense.
Even with 105 attack, which isn't the highest in the world, it still hits pretty hard coming off a move with that much base power. Obviously, Sap Sipper, very good ability. You can bring him in on, say, like a Terra Blast from a Heatran Grass to just soak up that Grass-type move, get an attack boost. Because Terra Grass Heatran is very important in the meta right now, and this guy just walls him entirely. Pair that up again with potential access to, say, Aqua Jet, Flip Turn, Wave Crash. Most likely Ice Spinner as well, because that will let you clean up hazards, and most water types get Ice Spinner for some reason. Yeah, I could see him as ironically, a very good check for grass types, which are very common in the meta, just because grass is a very common defensive Terra type right now.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask how and why grass types are super relevant, but yeah, I keep forgetting about the Terra mechanic. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, grass is super common as a Terra, mostly because of Rage Powder, Spore, moves like that. Terrestrializing into the grass type makes you immune to powder moves in general.
Yeah. Just
by game mechanics. So you don't have to worry about Amoonguss Rage Powdering you and stopping you from attacking the actual thing you want to hit. Grass also conveniently resists a lot of things that a lot of common Pokemon are weak to. So you can Terrestrialize into that defensively or offensively to let you bypass Rage Powder. It's just really common.
Finally, grass type gets to shine after it's only been what, 9 generations?
Pretty much, yeah. Hey guys, we're not just Amoonguss and Ferroseed. But yeah, I would probably grade this guy a solid B. I think he could make some waves in UU pretty easily.
Yeah, you're really doubling down on that joke.
Yeah, I kind of have to.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I guess the alternative isn't quite as funny. You know, this guy is going to lick the competition.
Yeah,
a bit
I guess
outdated.
You could say it's better than saying he's washed up at least.
Oh no! All right. Are we gonna look at luck too, or are we done for today?
I think luck actually has some interesting things to say about it. In all honesty.
All right.
105, 100, 100 is actually a very good defensive stat spread. It's not up there with like the best defensive balls, but I would say it's pretty solid, especially on a Pokemon with only 3 weaknesses, even if those weaknesses are fairly common.
I mean, it's actually not on par. It's a bit better than what were they called? Mythical Pokemon, like Mew.
Yeah, it's better than Mythicals, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure those 5 hit points are gonna really come in clutch at some point.
Actually, I believe that does help you hit some. What was it? It helps you hit some HP thresholds that are very good for Life Orb and Leftovers easier, believe it or not.
Huh. Yeah, that does sound. Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, basically for because of game mechanics and rounding, you want to hit very specific HP thresholds to make use of those items, and 105 HP makes it a bit easier to hit them. But besides that, I could see him as being kind of an interesting utility Pokemon. Obviously, you have a very good matchup against Fairy types, because, you know, Fairy resists Fairy, and Poison hits it super effectively, so that's pretty solid.
Do you have a specific signature move in mind for this guy?
I think something that has to do with disabling items would be pretty good.
Although, I mean, that's
weirdly
already kind of his gimmick. I feel like tripling down on it would be a bit overkill.
True. Though Avarice has been interesting from the looks of it. When it's hit by a contact move, it steals the item effectively. So it's sort of like a pickpocket, I would assume.
It's Magician and Pickpocket together, yeah. Just both of them at once.
Oh, okay, that's pretty handy. Maybe I could see a version of Fling, or like a fairy type stab Fling from this guy.
Oh, actually, yeah, that does make sense.
So you can steal someone's item and then throw it back at them, just poke them in the head with a choice scarf.
I wonder how viable that would be, though.
I don't know. Another possible idea is some move that lets you swallow your own held item to regain HP or recover HP based on the item. I forget. I know there's some move that lets you just eat a berry immediately. I could see it like that. That's like
I think that was. I think it was Bug Bite, the one that lets you steal the enemy's berry.
Yeah, works something like that. Maybe I could sort of see it like sort of like its own version of knockoff, where on contact it just eats the opponent's item and recovers like 25% HP or something.
Yeah, that's also appropriate. I've had people tell me he really needs. He's really supposed to be a dark type and not a poison type. Actually, choosing this guy's typing was a bit of a mess. I mean, I'm still not quite sure if Poison Fairy was the right pick.
I can see an argument for both. I think both of them work. But yeah, I'm gonna give this guy a B-. He's pretty cool. He would probably be somewhere between RU and UU. I can see him being a RU Pokemon that sees use all the way up into UU or possibly OU, depending on whatever niche strategy you're using.
Yeah. So in his supposed native tiers, what do you think he would want to go up against?
Well, again, Trick Room is pretty good, so he could be used to underspeed a lot of slow fairy types. Again, any sort of fairy type he has a good matchup against. He would presumably have access to Toxic, so he could be pretty good as an anti-stall Pokemon. Especially if you just steal you can poison a Pokemon and then steal its overs potentially to just shut down stall Pokemon.
Oh yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you just said stall isn't quite as relevant as it used to be.
Yeah, stall, it may not be as relevant as it used to be, but you still see it on Smogon especially. In VGC, it has a bit of a weird niche, since it's a poison type, as being decent against the, the Loyal 3? Since all of them can toxic poison you now, so anything immune to poison has a bit more of a niche now. Especially if you just lean into this guy's item repositioning stuff, you could use him to take out some very annoying Pokemon.
And what would be his counters?
Any steel type, effectively.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Because while he's not quad weak to steel, none of his stabs would do anything against a steel type, and they can hit him super effectively. So that would be kind of painful for the little guy.
Yeah, extremely painful. For him. All right.
Yes.
I believe that's a wrap for today. Any final thoughts?
I just really like seeing Muk redesigned and reimagined like this. It's very nice to see an old Kanto Pokemon get a bit of love by just seeing how seeing what he could do in the meta currently if you just changed a few aspects.
Yeah, I specifically chose Muk because it's one of those Pokemon that nobody really thinks about. It just kind of exists. I mean, you have stuff like Jinx, for example, is it's so offensively bad that people just keep talking about it, even to this day. But a Drowsy and Hypno. But with Muk, it exists. Nobody really cares or thinks about it too much.
Yeah, Muk's just one of those background Pokemon you see once in a while.
Exactly.
On the enemy team and don't think about.
Yeah, same with, I mean, with Ekans and Arbok, it's not quite the same since they're more popular, but it is almost fully equivalent to Weezing, and even Weezing got a new form. I mean, Muk got a new form too, so I guess we're even on that in that aspect.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show again.
And see you guys next time. Congratulations, you've made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, etc, etc. And if you have any ideas of your own of what I should draw next, feel free to comment down below. Bye bye.